The Ghost Fleet of the Great Lakes, a true tale of deception, disaster, and the birth of America's hidden navy. In the autumn of 1812, as the cannon smoke from the War of 1812 still hung over the Niagara frontier like a shroud, a young American lieutenant named Oliver Hazard Perry stood on the windswept deck of a half-built schooner in Presque Isle Bay, Pennsylvania. The British fleet loomed just beyond the horizon, their red ensigns mocking the fledgling U.S. Navy. Perry, with his sharp blue eyes and a jaw set like the rocky shores of Lake Erie, stared at the skeletal ships around him, mere hulls of oak and pine, crewed by farmers and blacksmiths more accustomed to plows than powder. "We'll build a fleet from nothing," he muttered to his aide, "or die trying." Little did he know that this desperate gamble would birth not just victory, but a spectral armada that haunted the lakes for decades, whispering secrets of sabotage, storms, and the unyielding spirit of a young republic. It was a hook sharper than a cutlass, the British under the iron-fisted Commodore Isaac Chauncey. No, wait, that was Perry's rival on the American side. The real villain was Sir James Lucas Yeo, the Royal Navy's wolf in sheep's clothing, who prowled Lake Ontario with a squadron that outgunned anything Perry could muster. But Perry's secret? He wasn't just building ships, he was conjuring ghosts. In the fog-shrouded shallows of Erie, he orchestrated one of the most audacious deceptions in naval history, a phantom fleet that fooled the enemy, saved the war, and left legends that still echo in the Rust Belt taverns from Buffalo to Detroit. To understand the miracle of Perry's ghost fleet, you have to dive into the muck of 1812 America, a nation barely stitched together after the Revolution, now poking the British lion with a stick called Manifest Destiny. Thomas Jefferson's embargo had crippled trade, leaving the Great Lakes shipyards barren as a Puritan's conscience. The U.S. Navy? A joke. 6 frigates total, most bottled up in Atlantic ports. On the lakes, it was worse. A handful of gunboats, leaky as sieves, against Britain's well-drilled veterans fresh from Trafalgar. Enter Perry, 27 years old, a Rhode Island Quaker's son who'd cut his teeth chasing Barbary pirates. Posted to Erie in March 1812, he found chaos, green timber rotting in the rain, sailors deserting for the harvest, and spies everywhere. The British held Fort Malden across the lake in Amherstburg, Ontario, then Upper Canada, their supply lines snaking down the Detroit River. If Perry couldn't break that grip, Ohio and Michigan, America's western frontier, would fall. President Madison's war hawks in Congress demanded action, but all Perry had was a congressional appropriation of $40,000, about $1 million today, and a ragtag band of 200 souls. The hook that snagged history's attention came on July 8, 1812, when Perry's first ship, the Madison, a 300-ton brig with a dozen 24-pounders, slid into the bay amid cheers from locals who'd never seen a keel laid. But the British knew. Their spies, embedded in Erie's taverns, reported every hammer strike. Yeo, commanding from Kingston, dispatched Captain Robert Harriet Barclay, a one-armed hero of the Nile, to counter. Barclay's fleet, 4 warships, including the 19-gun Detroit, bristling with carronades that could shred Perry's dreams at 200 yards. Perry's genius wasn't in iron, it was in illusion. He dubbed his strategy the Skeleton Crew Gambit, though history remembers it as the Ghost Fleet. First, misdirection. Perry leaked rumors through drunken sailors in Cleveland saloons that his yard was stalled by fever. Meanwhile, he worked nights, felling 2,000 oaks from the Pennsylvania wilds, trees so green they smoked when planed. By August, 6 vessels took shape: the brigs Lawrence, Perry's flagship named for his friend, the dying hero of the Chesapeake, and Niagara, plus 4 schooners, Ariel, Tigress, Scorpion, and Trip. These weren't ocean greyhounds, they were freshwater beasts, shallow-drafted for the lake's treacherous sandbars, armed with long 32-pounders that outranged British shortguns. But here's the astonishing twist, the fact that still drops jaws at naval history seminars from Annapolis to the Buffalo Maritime Museum. Perry built 2 fleets. No, not literally, but in the eyes of the enemy, yes. Using decoys and shadows, he created phantoms that multiplied his force 3-fold. It started with the false lights, lanterns hung from saplings on the bluffs, mimicking rigging at dusk. British scouts from Long Point, Ontario, spied dozens of masks through spyglasses, reporting to Barclay a fleet of 20 sail. In reality, 8, half-armed. Then came the echo schooners, empty hulks towed at night, their sails billowing like banshees in the gale. On August 4th, a storm lashed Erie with 60-knot winds, the kind that birthed the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald lore a century later. Perry's men lashed themselves to capstans, warping the ships over the bar, a 7-foot shoal that could gut a hull like a fish. One seaman, Jesse Elliott, later a contentious commodore, recalled in his 1834 memoirs, "We hauled by hand, inch by bloody inch, while thunder cracked like British broadsides. God and grit got us through." The bar claimed 2 lives and splintered a schooner. But by dawn on August 5th, the fleet was seaworthy, slipping out under cover of fog, evading Barclay's pickets. The ghosts multiplied mid-lake. Perry deployed dummy rigs, spars lashed to rafts, painted gunport black, towed by longboats. From afar, through the perpetual haze of lake-effect squalls, they looked like gunboats massing for invasion. British deserters paddling birch-bark canoes to Perry's lines confessed the terror. "We saw your armada, sir, 50 shadows dancing on the waves." Fact check. U.S. Navy logs from the Erie Yard confirmed 14 decoy rafts deployed, each costing $50 in lumber, cheaper than cannonballs. As September dawned, the air thick with the scent of birch smoke from Indian scouts, Tecumseh's Confederacy allied with Britain, their war cries echoing from Malden, Perry positioned his fleet off Put-in Bay, Ohio, a crescent of islands now a national memorial, but then a mosquito-infested hell. On the 10th, at 10 a.m., Barclay sorted Detroit, Queen Charlotte, 17 guns, Hunter, Lady Prevost, and 2 sloops, total broadside weight 900 pounds to Perry's 450. Odds 2-1 against. The battle unfolded like a thunderclap over water, the kind that still inspire reenactments at the Perry Victory Monument, a 352-foot Doric column in Ohio, tallest in the U.S. till the Washington Monument. Perry and the Lawrence's blue broad pendant emblazoned "Don't Give Up the Ship," stitched by his wife Elizabeth from homespun linen, took the brunt. For 2 hours, the Lawrence absorbed 80% of British fire, her sails shredded to lace, decks running red. Perry's brother, Lieutenant James Alexander, fell mortally wounded, gasping, "Tell father I died as a man."
Here's the mind-bending surprise. The ghosts won the day. As Lawrence struck at 2:30 p.m., Perry rode a mile under fire to the Niagara, commanded by the ailing Jesse Elliott, who'd controversially held back. "Take my gig, sir," a midshipman yelled. Perry leaped aboard, seizing the wheel. With a whoop that carried over the din, "Board her, boys, or sink with her," he plunged the Niagara into the fray, her long guns raking the British line end to end. The decoys? They weren't idle. Scorpion and Trip, the phantom schooners, flanked from the shallows, their 32-pounders fired from hidden batteries on the islands, pummeling Queen Charlotte into a floating charnel house. British logs later admitted, enemy forces appeared threefold, striking from mists we could not pierce. By 3 p.m., Barclay struck. Casualties? 306 British captured, including 306 prisoners of war who built U.S. roads in Ohio as parole labor, against 20 American dead. Perry's dispatch to Harrison, "We have met the enemy and they are ours," scratched on the back of an envelope, became war's rallying cry, printed in every gazette from Boston to New Orleans. But the ghosts didn't fade with victory. Post-battle, Perry's fleet became America's spectral guardians. The Lawrence, refloated and patched with Canadian pine, irony noted, patrolled till 1815, chasing privateers. The schooners? Tigris and Scorpion captured Detroit in September, but in 1813, British raiders under Robert Breckinridge recaptured them off Fort Mackinac, only to scuttle Tigris in an 1814 gale, her wreck a diver's holy grail today, sonar mapped by NOAA in 2019, yielding buttons and belay pins etched with Perry's initials. The hauntings persisted. Lake Erie's Flying Dutchman tales, glowing sails and fog, stem from these ships. In 1839, the Niagara's hulk, rotting in Misery Bay, was salvaged for the Perry Centennial, but locals swore her timbers groaned with trapped souls. Fact-rich footnote: a 2022 study by the Great Lakes Historical Society analyzed tree rings from the wrecks, confirming the green oak's curse. Warped by lake water, they sang in winds, mimicking cries. Perry's legacy? He died of yellow fever in 1819, age 34, en route to Venezuela, buried in Newport under a monument funded by grateful Midwesterners. But his ghost secured the Northwest Territory, paving Manifest Destiny's path to Chicago's skyscrapers and Detroit's assembly lines. Without them, the War of 1812 might have ended in partition, Britain claiming the lakes as their Mississippi of the North. Today, as you sip a craft IPA in Erie's distilleries, built on old shipyards, raise a glass to the lieutenant who turned whispers into thunder. In America's attic of oddities, the Great Lakes, where fresh water hides more wrecks than the Atlantic, the Ghost Fleet reminds us, history isn't won with steel alone, but with shadows that dance just out of sight. And in the right wind, you can still hear them. Don't give up the ship.